Hello and welcome to this video tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. Today we're going to take a look at compositing images in Photoshop. And if you don't know what composite images are, I'm going to explain it in a little more depth in just a second. But let's take a quick look at one I've created here. I actually have two. I'm going to show you the other one in just a second. Right here I've got this water essentially wrapping itself around this bottle, kind of a cool composite image. And also here, these flames wrapping themselves around this bottle. Now you may notice I've got the flames on the black background and the water on the white background. It just seems to work out better that way when you use water over white background if you're going to be combining these types of images, or flames over a dark background if you're combining flames with something. So it's just a little heads up. It's just a little easier to work with it that way. However, composite images are not just combining water or fire with some other object. A composite image is essentially any two images or any multiple images that are taken and put together into one image. It's called a composite. So just combining multiple images, that is what is known as a composite. And composites are used in everything from fine art to advertising and everything in between. So composite images are super popular and very important that you know how to do these here in Photoshop. So we're going to go over how to create this simple composite image here, this water wrapping itself around the bottle. And because we're using both a glass bottle, which is see-through, and water, which is also transparent, it's going to present us with a couple challenges, but nothing too super difficult. And by the way, this bottle, the image of the bottle, and the image of this water splash, I will post a link to these images so you can go and download them. The bottle is a free image. The water is an image you're going to have to buy if you want to follow along using the exact images. So go check them out. Check out the links I have listed, and let's get started. Now the first thing I want to do, well, I'm going to close this image. No, I don't want to save the changes. I also want to close this image. And I want to open up the bridge. The hotkey to open the bridge is Control-Alt-O, or on the Mac to be Command-Option-O. You can see here's the bridge. And I'm going to come right back to here, and I have this blue wavy bottle and this splash. I'm going to hold down my Control or Command key, select them both, and drag them and drop them right in Photoshop. Minimize the bridge to get it out of the way. Here are our images. You can see they are quite a bit larger than I would probably want them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating a new document. I'm going to figure out what size I want this image initially. So I'm going to go File, New. Nope, not File, Open. I'm going to go File, New. Note the hotkey Command or Control N, by the way. There was a second ago. So here's the new document dialog box. I'm going to set the width to, let's say, 740 and the height to 420. This is roughly a widescreen setting. It's not quite exact, but it's sort of that size. So here we go. This is what we're going to build our composite on. So what I want to do is I need to cut this bottle out, but before I do that, let me just check the size of this document, because I can see right down here in the bottom left corner that I'm only at 16% here. So I know this is a pretty large image. So I'm going to go Image, Image Size. And I can see, yeah, the height is 2,400 pixels. That's far more than I need. So I'm going to set the height to 800, just to really cut the size of that down. You can see now, here's 100%. Much smaller, much more manageable. I'm going to do the same thing with the splash here, because I can see this is only 33%. Image size, and the height I'm also going to bring down to, well, let's say 875. Okay, desizes that guy quite a bit. So here we go. We're working with this water image and this blue wavy bottle. Let's first extract this blue bottle. I'm going to zoom out just one. And I'm going to use a channel selection to extract this bottle. So what I'm going to do is open up my Layers panel, or this entire dock. And I'm going to close up the adjustment section, and here we go. I'm left with just the bottle here as my background layer. I'm going to go to the channels panel, and I'm going to start looking through my channels. Okay, here I've got red. The bottle appears to be pretty solid. We're not going to have that much transparency, and also the cork up here is rather bright, so we might not end up selecting the whole thing. The green channel, we've got a fair bit of transparency, and the cork is nicely, it's dark enough that we're going to select pretty much the entire thing. And the blue channel, we're going to get a lot of transparency, but it looks like the cork is going to be selected pretty well. So I think I'm going to stick with the green channel, because I can always go in and make sure I get the entire cork later on. I really like the fact that this bottle isn't too dark, so we're going to get a good selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all of my channels back on, select the RGB channel, and then I'm going to Command or Control click the thumbnail to the green channel. You can see that loads a selection. I'm going to come back to the Layers panel, and I need to invert this selection because basically when you select a channel, it selects all the white stuff, not the dark stuff. So what we need to do is go Select, Inverse. Now this is not inverting the color, this is inverting the selection. So inverse, there we go. We have our selection. I'm going to hit Command or Control J to pop that up onto its own layer. You probably only want to do that once. And when I shut off my background layer, you can see we have a faint outline of a bottle. So in order to intensify this a bit, what I'm going to do is hit Command or Control J a couple times to, thicken this up. So Command or Control J once, that's nice. Maybe one more time. There we go. That'll be enough. And I'm going to hit Command or Control E a couple times to merge all of those layers together. Now I'm going to zoom in because it still looks like the cork is not completely filled out. But you know what? Actually, it is filled out nicely. So we have our bottle selected. What I'm going to do now is move it over to our composite image. The way I'm going to do this, there are a myriad of ways you can just drag and drop. However, I'm not going to drag and drop. I'm just going to use the surefire method, which is go to Select All. Note the hotkey, by the way, right there. Command or Control A. Then I'm going to go Edit, Copy. Come over to the new composite image document, Edit, Paste. And there we go. We have our bottle. I'm going to hit Command or Control T, and I'm going to resize it, holding down my Shift and Alt. If you're on the Mac, that'd be Shift and Option keys. I'm going to drag the bottle up a little bit, make it a little bit smaller. And there we go. Enter to commit those changes. All right, we have our bottle here, and notice if I were to change this background color, it may start to look a little weird. Just hit Command or Control U to bring up my hue saturation dialog box. I'm going to hit Colorize, and I'm going to darken it up just a little bit. But if I really pump some saturation into this and I start changing the color, you can sort of see the color change through the bottle. So we have a little bit of transparency coming through the bottle. That's very nice. That's going to allow us to essentially see that water through the bottle. All right, the next thing we want to do, we can close this document now. We want to go and extract the water. So how are we going to do this? Well, much in the same way, we're going to use a channel-based selection. So we're going to come over here to channels. We'll look through our channels, and I want something that shows a lot of the water. So I want the water to appear very dark. So in this case, I'm going to go with the red channel. Matter of fact, I'm going to duplicate the red channel. So I'm going to click and drag it down to the new channel button. It looks just like the new layer button. I'm going to drop it on that button. You can see I duplicate that layer. I'm going to hit Command or Control L, which is going to bring up my levels dialog box, and I'm just going to drag the black slider over a little bit just to intensify the blacks to make sure I'm really getting as much of that water as I can. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit Command or Control I to invert this channel. So Command or Control I, you can see there, that's not just inverting a selection, that's actually inverting all the color. So all the whites become black, all the blacks become white, and everything in between becomes an inverted shade of green. So a 90% gray becomes a 10% gray, and so on and so forth. But because we've done this, when I control-click this channel now, we don't have to invert the selection. So I'm going to turn my RGB channel back on. You can see I get this red overlay. The only reason that's there is because we have our duplicated channel turned on. So I'm going to select the RGB channel. It's really all three of these channels meshed together, and I'm just going to shut off that red copy channel. Notice I still have my selection. You want to make sure you select the RGB, come back to layers, hit Command or Control J to pop that water up onto its own layer, and you can see that we have just like that extracted that water from the background. So now, again, Command or Control A to select all, Command or Control C to copy, come over to the composite image, Command or Control V to paste it right in place. Now this also needs to be scaled down a little bit, so I'm going to zoom out, hit Command or Control T, grab these handles, kind of scale it down a little bit. There we go, we got some nice water now, sort of pouring in behind our bottle. We want this to almost look like it's wrapping around the bottle, and we want to make sure we can create the illusion that we're seeing this water through the bottle. We want to see more of it than we are seeing because really we're not seeing much at all, even though there is transparency in this bottle. So let's take a look at how we can do that. So the first thing we want to do is actually drag this water up on top of the bottle. Okay, and you can see it sort of looks funny. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of that in a minute. I do, however, I'm going to shut that off for a second. I want to duplicate this water and create a copy that is going to be what we see through the bottle. Even though we copied the bottle and we have it, partially transparent, I'm actually going to fake that look of water through the bottle because if you think about it, this is really just pixels, and when you look at something through glass, it gets distorted. So just simply putting the water behind this bottle is not going to be good enough. So we're just going to drop it in front of it, and we're going to apply our filter to that, and we're going to sort of play with the way the water looks through the bottle first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this layer back on, hit Command or Control J to duplicate it, shut off one copy, and I'm going to control click the waving bottle. So we get a selection, and I'm going to mask this water to that selection. So with that selection. You can see the marching ants there. I'm on my water layer. I'm just going to hit the mask icon. It masks that right to it. That looks okay. We still have some lighter edges on that water. If you zoom in, you can see we can really take care of that by using a blend mode. Let's try multiply. That looks pretty good. And remember, this water would appear darker viewing it through this glass. So the only thing we need to do is come up here and get it off of the cork. However, before we do that, we're going to apply a filter to this entire layer. So make sure you select the layer icon, not the mask icon. We're going to go Filter, Distort, Glass. And here we are. You can see I have some effects here. Basically, I want quite a bit of distortion, so I'm going to push distortion up to, between 10 and 12. Maybe we'll go with 12. And smoothness, I'm going to move smoothness back to, you know what, actually, let's put smoothness up to somewhere maybe 6 or 7, depending on the size of your image. So we're going to go with 6. And the texture, we're going to set this to either frosted or canvas. I'm going to stick with canvas. And scaling, you probably want a decent number for scaling as far as percentage. So let's go somewhere maybe around 160% is going to be good. We're going to hit OK. And you can see that immediately the water we see through the bottle appears semi-distorted. And now we just want to lower the opacity of that water as well. So there we go. We've lowered the opacity. We've just created the water that you're going to see through the bottle. Matter of fact, it almost looks like somebody's just shaking this bottle up and there's just like water floating around in it. Let's zoom in on the cork here real quick and just get rid of that. So I'm going to grab the brush tool. I'm going to downsize the size of my brush using my bracket key. I'm going to select my mask, my foreground color. I want that to be black. And I'm just using my mouse. I'm just going to basically paint black over the cork, just like that. Very simple, very easy. Now I'm going to turn on the other copy of the water, and I'm going to control-click this mask that we just created, and I'm going to invert my selection. So I'm going to hit Command, or you know what, I'm actually not going to select that mask because I just covered up the cork. I'm going to Control or Command-click the actual bottle layer. Control-Shift or Command-Shift-I is inverting the selection. You can see we've just inverted the selection. Select the water layer that has no mask. Apply a mask to that. So now we have this water sort of spilling in, and it looks like it's spilling in behind the bottle again. But the difference is we can now edit this mask and make some of this water look like it's coming around in front of this bottle. So I'm going to grab my tablet here. And actually, I'm not going to use my tablet. I'm going to simply use a paintbrush and the mouse. And I'm going to paint in areas, using white, by the way. I'm using white, and you want, maybe a brush set to 70 or 80% hardness. And I'm going to start painting in where I want water to appear in front of the bottle. So we want this water to look like it's wrapping around. And you can see that the water still has kind of that hard edge. Don't worry. We're going to take that really light edge. Don't worry about that. We're going to take care of that in a second. We do, however, want to make sure no water shows up here in the darker part of the glass. And you also want to make sure you don't accidentally erase parts of the water you really want to keep. So there we go. I'm maybe going to place a little bit more right in there. Now, the last thing I want to do is find a way to darken these edges, and really probably the easiest way to do that is just grab the burn tool, and I'm not going to protect tones here. I'm going to make sure I'm on the water layer right here, and simply, I'm going to set my exposure down, maybe somewhere around 30 to 40, and I'm just going to start painting over this water, and you can see that it darkens it up because really you'd be seeing through this water into or onto the glass surface, and you wouldn't, number one, you wouldn't have these white edges, but it would also be slightly darker in front of the bottle than it would be anywhere else. So there we go. We've just darkened up the water. Maybe I took it a step too far there. Looks like I did, so I'm just going to use my dodge tool. I'm just going to go over it really quickly, just sort of lighten it up just a tad bit. And there you go. You can see that we have now successfully wrapped this bottle with water using some very simple techniques for selecting this water. Simple yet very powerful techniques for selecting the water using channels, and then combining it all in a new Photoshop document just like that, and using essentially these same techniques, you can copy all kinds of things, bring them into a document, mix them together, use masks, and create all kinds of customized images. And whenever you're dealing with something like water or fire where you have very touchy edges, you're probably going to need to use the dodge and burn tools, or a tool like that. You could use an adjustment layer and just mask it to that area to sort of darken or brighten an area and really, make it blend in with the scene in a proper way. So there you go. That is how it's done. That is how I do it, and I certainly hope you've learned something by watching this video tutorial, and I thank you for watching. Please go check out the site. That's www.tutvid.com. I'll see you guys around.